Starting over isn't easy. I know how daunting starting over can feel. It can feel not only overwhelming, but humbling. And for some of us, besides feeling scared to start over, we might even feel a little bit embarrassed. But what if starting over is exactly what you need? What if that cycle that you're currently in is keeping you from being all that you can be? What if it's keeping you from discovering all of who you are, your truest self? Welcome to the Monday Message. My name is Francis. The Monday Message is just bite-sized nuggets to inspire you to think deeply and inspire you to take action and create momentum in your life. In my last video, I talked about is suffering optional? And through that, I talked about not always feeling like I had options. And as a result, I found myself in jobs that were literally detrimental for my health. And so trying to figure out myself and on my path of self-discovery, I had to start over many times. When I decided to lose 80 pounds, I had to start over with the way that I ate, and my relationship with food had to be reestablished. And I also had to figure out what was the emotional factor behind that. When I moved from Massachusetts to Maryland in 2011, I didn't know a lot of people. So I had to start over. And then when I left my career in 2013 and transitioned into another venture, a very new venture that was like completely outside of my comfort zone, I had to start over. And then when I bought a one-way ticket to Thailand in 2016, I was not just starting over, but I was even further, thousands and thousands of miles away from my comfort zone. I think I might take the cake of the queen of starting over, okay? And I'm okay with it. Because it was through that process that I really discovered so many beautiful things about myself that I didn't even know existed. And I share these experiences with you because many of you are afraid to start over. You might be afraid to start something new. You might be clinging to something that's no longer working. Been there, definitely done that. Starting over can be one of the hardest things that we ever do. It's scary to leave behind the familiar and step into the unknown. So I totally get it. And what I find is that a lot of people really get stuck in their ways and refuse to start over because of fear, obviously, and discomfort. And so because of this, the kind of change that they deeply desire doesn't happen. People really get comfortable that they don't even realize how much potential that's sitting untapped inside of them. Here's a clear distinction about starting over that I just want to highlight. Starting over doesn't necessarily mean that you're starting fresh, like from scratch, from zero. Whatever you're letting go so that you can begin again, you're bringing in the lessons and experience, the wisdom and the skills that you gain can now be applied to this next season in your life. So just remember that. You're not coming with nothing. You're coming with a lot of something. Starting over means letting go of what was and moving forward with a new mindset, a new attitude, and sometimes a fresh perspective. So starting over is absolutely necessary because when you start over, you do it with intention. You get to choose what happens next. You get to decide who you want to become and where you want to go. You get to create a whole new story for yourself. I was watching You on Netflix. Anyone familiar with that? I know it's a terrible show, but I started the series a long time ago and I was just committed to seeing it through. But there was something that he said, Joe, in the show, he said, what rots doesn't grow. I thought that was a very useful analogy to sort of think of yourself as something that's decaying. I know, for a lack of a better word, it's kind of like not a nice visual, but essentially that's what happens when there is resistance to starting over. If you're finding yourself living in the same place, doing the same old job, or hanging out with the same people, like you find yourself incredibly stagnant and life just feels stale, then you aren't giving yourself the opportunity to grow and learn about who you really are. Unless, of course, if you're completely satisfied and happy with how things are going with your life, then cool beans, right? No need to interrupt that process if it's working. They will say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, kind of thing. But there's always an opportunity to learn, even when things feel in alignment. That learning doesn't stop. But if not, if things aren't copacetic, then it's time for you to make some changes. So please do this. Keep the rest of this message in the front of your mind during this video. Starting over is an uncomfortable experience. We all know this already. Often people can't help but feel like they're losing something with each transition. And that makes sense because when you start over, you do have to grieve some of that loss. When I had left my career in the mental health field, I felt really bad because I knew what I was walking away from the kids and the families that I work with. And I carried that grief for a long time until I was able to process that loss and sort of forgive myself for walking away. And it's so important that you grieve whatever transition that you're experiencing, the previous identities that you were holding on to, who you thought you knew you were. So definitely part of this starting over is grief and loss. Like I was saying, people often feel like they're losing something with each transition, but it's also an essential part of growing as a human being. You're not losing, you're shedding and making space for the new to enter your life. So keep that in mind. You are shedding, okay? Shedding, shed it all. No matter how many times you start over, it's going to be a beautiful journey. It's not always going to be easy because it's not supposed to be. The minute you make that decision, you will meet the right people along that path that's going to support you and guide you. I truly 100% believe that people will be placed in our lives to support our dreams and our desires. And remember, part of this journey is another opportunity for you to rediscover who you are. We are multidimensional beings. We are creators, which means that we must do our best to recreate ourselves and be okay with that. Don't be afraid of starting over. And if there's a bit of fear there, naturally, feel the fear and do it anyway. Move forward because you're not supposed to be the same person you were a month ago, a year ago, or even 5 years ago. If life feels too comfortable and too routine, that means change is not happening. Growth is not happening. You are essentially stagnant, almost like a piece of furniture. A piece of furniture, even the furniture in the room needs to be moved around, right? Sometimes we get the urge to kind of like, oh, let me move the couch over here instead, feng shui the apartment. I'm going to use this metaphor. Can you imagine a farmer who's comfortable with a plot of crops that's not growing? That farmer will have to eventually pivot, right, at some point to do something different to be able to sell his crops so that he can actually feed his family and also to save future crops, to learn what didn't work so that he can apply that new knowledge, that wisdom into what he does moving forward with his crops. Break the routine of being yourself. We have layers upon layers upon layers of ourselves that we have yet to discover. If nature can change, so can you. Nature is a reflection of you and I. It models what it means to be patient with change, to be multifaceted with how it shows up, and to transition with ease, without resistance. That is nature. That is you. So if you are starting over in your life right now, I want to offer you some encouragement. Let starting over inspire you. Let it invigorate you, knowing that you're embarking on a new journey, a new lesson, and another opportunity to discover more of who you are. The world does a really great job of suppressing our gifts, suppressing parts of us that if we tap into, could be dangerous to the status quo. If you're not starting over, it means that you're not recreating yourself. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to evolve and expand. And it also means that you're not learning anything new about yourself. And I want that for you. So don't let starting over get you down for too long. Process. I always say process those emotions and then move forward. Starting over is one of the most rewarding things that you can do. So embrace it head on. Thank you for watching the Monday Message. Let me know which part of this video resonated with you the most. As always, please share, like, subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. It really helps other folks find the channel and find the content. And I will see you on the other side of change.